Hello, everybody. This is Crazy John, and we're here with Thomas Carroll from London. We talked to him once before to
Hey
see
guys.
how the crisis and the virus is affecting all of us. Of course, it's not affecting me at all. I've not changed my lifestyle one bit. How
No,
about
no,
you,
not at all,
Thomas?
not at all. Well, to be fair, it hasn't changed much over here for me either. So I am classed as an essential worker. I am only working 2 days a week, which has dramatically dropped my workflow. But life goes on.
Yes, over here, I'm not concerned about it at all, nor taking any steps towards any protection. I'm just living life normally. No, that's it. Oh, let me see if I take this off.
Come on, C3PO.
Yeah, there we go. Little sweaty under there, but no. I'm working from home for my day job, and then I have two other part-time jobs that I'm actually considered essential also. And getting out, and actually I enjoy the getting out. We were talking that just a little bit before. One offered me some leave, voluntary leave, and then they denied it when I put in for it. So, but I'm finding both the hours on both of them are getting cut back anyhow, just because they're cutting back hours. So it's kind of working out. I was going to pick up more hours at one because if I was dropping the other, and actually, to tell you the truth, I'm spending less money not going anywhere anyhow. I don't know about you, but
Well, that's it. Yeah, exactly. You do find you spend a lot less. Some people trying to find distractions are going internet shopping, so they're doing the Amazon and things like that. Um, and they do. I mean, you can get that almost shopping addiction just from going on online. And
well, I have to admit, I have been doing some of that, but which has to slow down. But I've been working on some things I wanted to catch up on for a while. Like I said earlier to you, that I keep screwing up the time, and I felt bad for Thomas kept screwing up the time to do this interview. And I was playing I've installed some Linux and working on some Linux. I'm going to be working on some Python coming up too. I did a course online for learning Python. So I saw something posted somewhere where they said, if you don't come out of this having learned some new skills, it's your own fault because you can't say you didn't have the time. So
exactly,
that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. Playing around with some interesting masks. It actually is a gas mask in there, so it's kind of interesting. So it is actually functional, although it looks kind of cool.
Will it actually work against the COVID though, or is it just?
If I put the filters in it, there are filters you can put in it. If I put those in, it would be fully functional.
Yeah,
so.
It must be standing. It must be a bit strange standing in the queue for the grocery store though.
Actually, I haven't worn it out other than outside the house to walk the dog the one time, just for shits and giggles, But well, both the jobs I go to is essential. They supply me with gloves and masks. I don't know about your job if they have you do that, but
So when I'm out on site, so my work is classed as essential just because it's maintenance work. So it's basically most of the time I am on my own anyway. I do have gloves, but we're not going out with masks, which is seems to be a common thing here. You do have the odd one or two people, cab drivers, things like that. But unless you're in a compressed space with someone, they usually don't suggest having them.
Yes, guys. Well, what we had mentioned talking, I don't think I said today, is talking about the virus and our situations, and also how to follow up on our last conversation that we had on depression and how that affects people. And I think right now, with a lot of people being locked in, I think this is a bad time for some people.
It really is.
Being quarantined.
So
what effects have you seen?
Well, I've got quite a lot of friends who work as essential workers, either in the NHS or outside of the NHS. So we've had a lot of people who are struggling at the moment with regards to things like PPE, personal protective equipment, and the fact that they can't get it is getting quite draining on a lot of people. You also have people who have got the equipment, but because they're essential workers and they're going out a lot more, they're struggling with actually dealing with the fact that everyone else is off and they're not. So they're getting a lot of stress because they are classed as essential. You also got people who are having problems with domestics, for instance, where they're suddenly in tight quarters with their partners. I think already the rate of divorce has gone up.
Yeah, but if you get divorced, where can you go?
Exactly. So I did actually have one friend who was going through a divorce just before it happened, and the day that she was meant to move out, it all kicked off, and we were not allowed to start moving around. So she struggled to get a company to help her move. I actually helped out because I do have the van, so I can jump in there and get it out. We followed our health services 111's timeline, and they basically said she had to pack the stuff. It had to be left for 48 hours without anyone going near it or touching it. I then could take it to the property and leave it there another 48 hours before she could move in and unpack it. So it's very odd situation to be in, because obviously that's quite a
good amount of time.
Yeah, it's 5 days that she had to stay there without her stuff. So it's a very hard situation for someone who is going through that kind of thing, especially when you've got to stay with someone who you're not happy with, and if you're not happy, you want to change those things as quickly as possible. So yeah, it's definitely played on their mental health. I have kept updated with them and checked it's all been okay. So they seem okay at the moment. They seem to be able to get out, but obviously it's a lot of stress at once for someone.
I guess for some relationships, you never know, it could be good, but then for a lot, I think it's going to probably be bad. If you're already on edge and then you're stuck in with someone, I think that makes it even worse. I know some of the people I deal with from my main job, where we're telecommuting from home, teleworking, I should say. Some of them don't have the luxury that I do of having other jobs which are considered essential and getting out. And I know they're getting very fidgety, and it's bothering them, because even going out to the grocery store is odd. The grocery stores here make you stay certain distances. The one grocery store I go to has you only come in one door and you have to go out another, and they have things blocked that you actually have to go a certain pattern in the store. It's very interesting. And then there's a lot of things missing. We don't have toilet tissue on the shelves over here.
It's the same everywhere. Don't worry, you're not alone on that one.
And I find that also there's a lot of food missing. There's a lot of meats and stuff not there. And I think some of that is a combination. They're not getting the same amount of shipments. But I think because people aren't going out to eat as much either, it causes more strain on the store. They have to buy stuff at the store. So
yeah, so with us, they did say that the stores would get back to normal the more we followed these guidelines that they were saying. They haven't quite got there yet, but they are getting better. They are slowly getting more and more stacked, but it's all about the supply chain, unfortunately. So fingers crossed it should start picking up and getting back to a bit more normality. There are ways around it. So we're struggling at the moment with delivery services. So, for instance, if you order from one of our local stores like Sainsbury's, it's very hard to get a time slot to get your food delivered. I've been quite lucky on that front because I do a thing called HelloFresh, which is an app on my phone. Right. And I've been with them a long time. They deliver my food once a week. I'm pretty sorted. But even that, the meals I've noticed have got slightly smaller.
Yeah, we were doing that there for a while. It's kind of interesting because it gets you to eat some things and try some things you normally wouldn't do also. So that is kind of nice.
And it's very good for the mental health as well, because cooking alone is something almost quite artistic. It's something that gets you motivated to actually do something. And it's much better than just a prepared meal that's already done for you. Just cooking something yourself and eating healthy, it will help with the mental health side of it.
Actually, that's one of the things my girlfriend enjoys cooking food immensely. She doesn't like baking, but she likes cooking food. And that to her is very enjoyable.
Yeah.
So
it's something I do highly suggest.
It's a therapy. It's a well, it can also probably be a moving meditation for some people, in a way, So,
Well, the good thing about it as well is because it keeps a part of a routine, and routine is something that really helps with keeping your mental health exactly as it should be.
I think the thing that bothers me the most is I was used to getting out to the gym every day and lifting heavy, and luckily I had installed a new 40-pound punching bag here at my girlfriend's house beforehand, and I don't do the real heavy bag since I've had 5 retina surgeries and my hip and leg worked on. But I'm glad I did that. But slowly but surely, I'm getting some more equipment here, because that's another thing that takes you a while. Is other people are ordering lots of equipment to work out at home also. And Amazon's deliveries are very slow. I don't know how delivery's been over there from Amazon, but it is. So even if you do order stuff, I've actually switched over to going back to ordering mostly from eBay again, because I'm getting quicker orders from eBay than from Amazon.
See, our delivery services are slower, but by about two to 3 days at the moment. Food supplies are a lot harder to come by at the moment. So I wanted to make a booking at the beginning of it, just so I could get some essentials in. And I couldn't get a booking until the 29th of this month, which for a time slot is pretty far in the future.
Right.
So yeah, that was a bit harder for the food deliveries, but normal deliveries seem to be coming through pretty fine from Amazon.
How are your restaurants over there? Just open for pickup or delivery?
For delivery, that's the only thing that you can do with it. So I have had the sneaky odd pizza here or there, but they're doing the whole social distancing thing, and you get the mark of who's cooked it as well. So if they do need to do if they do need to socially track it, they can. We haven't actually had too much of a problem as such with contraction in main areas. People do seem to be following social distancing rules, so it's by far we seem to be okay. We're allowed out for 1 piece of exercise a day, so I've been going for a walk in my local forest. My mother actually lives on the other side of the forest, and I've been meeting up with her at the river and keeping a social distance using the river.
Sounds like a
song. Quite nice.
Through the over the river and through the woods, the mother's house we go. That was grandmother, but So what do you think? What are you missing the most? What do you think is stressing you the most? I said to me it was going to the gym every day that got out my stress. That was my stress release.
So I think the most, not me personally, but the British seem to be missing the pub the most. So
I'm sure there's a lot of people over here. There are some. There's a microbrewery down the street that has certain hours. Limited hours are open to just sell for people to come and pick up. But and some of our grocery stores now sell like beer and wine, but not the hard liquor. Some people are making runs into the adjoining state and hoping that they don't get caught, because there's a fine to be running into another state just to pick up alcohol and come back. If you want to pick up the harder stuff, the state below us, I'm in Pennsylvania, the state below us is Maryland. So there's people that have been making the run, so like the old days.
Is it a pretty high fine, or is it?
I think it's only like $10 or stuff. A lot of the fines are just smacking your wrist, but
well, that's it.
It's still annoying.
That's one of the problems we've had is that it's £60, which I think it's about 120 US dollars.
Probably.
So
yes.
It's not much at all. I mean, a lot of people have still been going out and working, even though they can get fined because they earn more than that in a day. So it's kind of a catch-22. It is like a slap on the wrist. If you're caught out just in a social gathering, then yes, it's going to be a bit more harsh. But we've been pretty laxed about it. It's kind of just been left to us to deal with, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It's kind of like not putting the oppression on people, as we've seen with some other countries, but at the same time, it's not got that seriousness about it that it does need. And there's a lot of infighting about what should be the best course of action.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing. I myself, I don't know if you have it for your job, but for both my essential jobs, I have written and signed papers stating that I am allowed to be out and about because I'm an essential employee, and even my day job, I'm an emergency response person. So I kind of have three forms of documentation. If I'm caught, of course, I'm supposed to be going somewhere work related.
Yeah,
I'm
so
sure.
we've got this. We've got the same thing with the NHS. So the NHS do have their own cards where they can go out and get essential supplies at certain times and be out a bit more normally than the rest of us. Where I am classed as construction and maintenance, we don't have that kind of system. So we do in a way of having things called a CSCS card, which is to get you on and off site. But for some construction like myself, it feels more risky because we're having to go out, and if we do get pulled over by the police or anything like that, they're then having to phone through to our employers and to the staff to make sure that that is the case. But again, the police has been pretty laxed about it. They're only pulling people over if they see bikes and canoes on their roof or things like that. They're not really too focused. I mean, I drive a work van with the number on the side of it, so it's pretty obvious where I'm going and what I'm doing.
So we're talking about this. What have you been doing to alleviate your own stress through this?
So, for me personally, I've been trying to be a bit more artistic. Got a bit more into my painting, a bit more into working with clay just to try and make some models. And just trying to keep a routine. So not just running about in my pajamas all day. I've got my two rabbits who are running around like mad at the moment. They've been keeping me quite entertained as well. And it's just finding those little pleasures, really.
What kind of rabbits do you have?
I've got two. I've got one Dutch who is called Dude. He's over there somewhere, and I've got Sweetheart as well, who's a mini lop.
I used to have a lop. I used to have a full size lop, and I used to have the minis. And the lop had gotten the one mini pregnant. We didn't know one mini was a girl, and he was just on it. And then it just kept going. Eventually, we were selling rabbits back to the animal store, to the pet store.
Well, they're an interesting pet. I've never thought of them as being we're very trainable or as a house pet.
They're smarter than you think. They're litter box trained, and they know in the house. They know. I used to take the full lop to a part-time job with me, which at the time was Radio Shack, and there was quite a few years ago. And if somebody came in, like there were people that got to know, but if there's somebody came in didn't know, and it was running around the store, it would go back and it would go into the back room and find. Take it in a cat box. It would find the cat box and get in it, and it's like, oh, it can remember where the cat box is and climb back into it for safety. And it was kind of interesting. It's smarter than you think.
I mean, mine are fully litter trained. They do tricks as well. So if I click my hand and spin it, they spin on the spot. If I go like that, they stand up. They're incredibly smart, and they're silent as well. So you don't get in trouble from the neighbours from like barking or anything like that.
That's a good point. At the same time, we had all the bunnies. We had guinea pigs too, the big furry ones, and they were interesting and very unlike the rabbits. They were very talkative. Although you didn't know what they were saying, they would want to have a conversation with you. Also very smart. But yeah, so your bunnies keep you occupied. That's good.
That is one thing I found with the outbreak, though, is vets and pet stores have not been classed as essential. So there is a lot of trouble of getting stuff for them. I've always had a good stock of stuff in case, but Yeah, so if I need to get hay or if I need to get veterinary treatments or anything like that, it's not been classed as essential.
Well, that's interesting. Over here, they were well, in my state, they were classified as essential and still open. Of course, their hours are changed. You know how that is. What I found the vets have started doing is, at first, when we first went to the vets, at first they were making it. They got rid of a lot of stuff in the office. You had to stay out front. You had to stay away from people. They would take the pet back. Now what they're doing is kind of like drive up. You make an appointment, you come, you call them, and you tell them they're there. They come out, they get the pet and take it in, and then when they're done with the pet, they bring it back out to you. So you
All right.
actually don't even go into the vet. It's sort of like a drive up, like one of the old drive up hamburger shops or something. But they come and get your pet and take your pet in, bring your pet back out to minimize how much contact you have with the building and stuff.
Well, that's good because it's good because they're still getting the treatment as well. For me, I'm looking at the moment and thinking their injections are due in June for myxomatosis. I'm a bit skeptical whether we'll be ready for that. We have just had our time extended by another 3 weeks for lockup, so it's going to be interesting to see.
So when is your lockup through?
So it was meant to be up today, funny enough, but they reviewed it yesterday and they've said it's looking like another 3 weeks at least.
I guess we're expecting that it's looking somewhere into May for us, so that would be somewhere into May for you also.
Yeah, most likely. We're hoping that this herd immunity does actually start to kick in, but at the moment it's a bit iffy if it's going to actually work or not. We are looking into things like the plasma transfer as well, but at the moment that seems to have gone on hold for some reason, and we're not quite sure why. We are hoping for more updates on that kind of thing.
I haven't heard at first there for a while they were talking about that one virus treatment, one virus drug, and also the Z-Pack over here, and I wasn't so sure about that because the Z-Pack is a antibiotic treatment that I know.
Is that the malaria drug?
That's the other one, but the Z-Pack was a upper respiratory treatment that not like penicillin, like similar penicillin, but they had been using that a while ago, and it had become one of those things that strains of diseases have become immune to it because they were overusing it. So when they started saying that the Z-Pack was what should be used, I'm like, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure they're just throwing something out there that people know the name of, and if it really was a good treatment or not.
Well, this is it. There seems to have been a lot of confusion about what's working and what's not. I don't know if it's been fueled by the internet or if it's been fueled by the media or anything like that. But the confusion itself seems to be causing a lot of rifts between people's social interactions. And again, that's going to cause massive effects on people's mental health.
So I myself, to stay de-stressed, have just been staying busy doing stuff I wanted to get to for a while. That's been helping me. What do you recommend people do? What have you been telling your friends to do to try and keep them from falling into despair?
So as long as most people have got their whole places clean. Most people have got all of their work done. Their gardens are looking spectacular. Just take some time for yourself. That's one of the pleasures of this, is that you can actually relax and go into your own thoughts a bit. Now, obviously, it's not the best advice for everyone, but
what if you're
certain people need to realize
deep and twisted?
So if your thoughts are deep and twisted, you probably need to speak with someone. So there are a lot of people online, psychotherapists, who are doing Skype chats and talks.
There you go. That's true. That's a good point.
So I think there's BetterHelp is one of them. There's an app on the phone where you can actually get in touch with an actual therapist. You can go through a list of therapists and find the right one for you and be able to actually chat along with someone. Talking to a friend as well. We've got people here doing online pub quizzes where they're literally everyone from their pub is actually getting together online and doing a quiz, getting drunk with each other.
There you go.
Usually,
So you're basically like instead of teleworking, telepubbing.
exactly, telepubbing. Yes, that's a good way of putting it. I like that. You've got the as I say, you've got a lot of therapists. Like my mother, for instance, is a therapist. She's seeing a lot of her clients online now because it's the only way that she can really do it. Unfortunately, you can't go down to the office anymore and go in and sit on the chair and get the whole hypnotherapy or anything like that. But
Well, that's probably good because sometimes, I've had problems and depressions over things at times, and I'm sure you have too. And sometimes when you have too much time, it's not always good for you.
no.
So it can go the other way. It can be like we said for relationships of being stuck. Somebody's stuck in a house, and it could go either way. It could go good or it could go bad.
I think this is one of the things is that it's finding where your mentality is. Were you stressed before all of this and having problems with your job and stressing over the job and things like that, or were you one of the people who wasn't so stressed and now you're finding stress because you've got nothing to do? There's different levels and different areas of the mentality which can actually break down. And
of course, that's a good. Well, something you made me think of. For some people, the fact that you have time, say you were stressed over your job, and now things are different, it might give you time to rethink how you might want to change your job,
exactly,
or how you might want to change your life. And like some people have said, we shouldn't come out of this the same. We should come out of this different. And maybe that would be a positive thing if you took this time to evaluate everything and rethink it.
Well, like yourself, you said you were also using the time to restudy some bits and bobs, weren't you?
Yes,
so
exactly.
If you're learning a new skill, it's going to improve your life. It's basically you've got to do what's right for you at the end of the day. And if for you going for a walk every now and then in a secluded area is what you need to try and reevaluate where you are, go for it. As long as you're following those social distancing rules, it should help. If you're someone who needs to talk with someone, contact a friend, contact a therapist, contact anyone. It's all online now. We've got Google. You can find it out pretty easily. It's just try and relax with it, because if you don't relax, you're going to stress yourself out more.
Now, here's an interesting question. Now, when we get through this, how do you see the integration going of us going back to work? I think that's going to be interesting also, because things are different over here too. Schools are out, and probably the word is the school year is done. So that's going to change some things with people trying to phase back into work also. How is it going over there, and what do you see as any potential problems for that?
I personally don't think we can go back to what we had. I think the system that we had was adapted for many years ago. The schooling system, for instance, is just it needs re-establishing. And I think we should be looking and focusing on this time and how we can actually make it better for the citizens of the world, and readapting it so that everyone is a bit more happier as they come out of it.
That's a good point you made. I often think that the way the school system is set up is to actually get embedded into us the system that we then follow for working every day. They get us to go to a school every day for a certain amount of hours. We go in, we have lunch, we do more, we leave. Surprisingly, that's very similar to you go to work, you have lunch, you work some more, you leave, and you go home.
Well, this is something I've advocated for a long time, is trying to get mental health into schools, trying to get people to understand that everyone has a mental health, and everyone needs to look after their mental health, and we need to look after each other's mental health at the end of the day. It's something we need to try and get from an early age that we understand, because at the end of the day, if you want a good society, you need a happy society.
Well, I think also talking about changing it, if work changes more to the fact that you telework, I think it's a good idea that school also changes to the fact that you do some teleschooling, and that everybody learns that just being there doesn't mean you're doing something. A lot of places have the mentality that if you're there, you're doing something. When in all reality, that doesn't mean you're being productive, and vice versa. You can be just as productive or more productive at home doing something. And that does reflect back on your peace of mind. If people feel that they're locked into a pattern and it becomes a prison, and I think the change would be good mentally that way too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody likes feeling that they're locked into a prison not of their making. You know what I mean? I don't even want to be locked into a prison of my own making, let alone of someone else's making. You know what I mean? So
what we've learned from this experience, though, is that there are certain jobs that can't adapt. So you've got the medical industry, which needs reform, but they are essential. They do need to be out there. You've got the construction industry, which again, it needs to be out there. We've learned that these people are much more than what we've been paying them and how we've been treating them. And that probably needs reform in showing that they're paid correctly and they're treated a bit more fairly for what they actually do.
yeah, it's interesting. So what do you think? Here's a question. What do you think are going to be the biggest industries affected by this whole thing? Just curious what you might think.
It's the time frame has actually been very bad for it. So over here has been in the middle of our growing season. So it's literally when everyone has planted the seeds for things like the gardening industry, for instance. So the horticultural and landscaping industries will take a massive hit because they've planted all these seeds, they've made sure the plants have started growing, and those will now go to waste because by the time that we get back to it, those plants will be out of season. So that will take a massive hit. People have already began to lose their garden centres, things like that. I think government is probably going to take a massive hit as well, because we are. If you look at, for instance, the way the money sharing and the areas of which focus has been put on, those areas are taking away from other areas such as refuge, from adapting new areas of industry. So those are really going to suffer on where they actually can put the money and where they can take it away from, take it to.
I over here it's interesting to me because I work in the energy field, and it's interesting because gas prices are going lower than they've been for a long time. I paid $1.84 for gas this week. I can remember a number of years ago when it was up to $4.05 a gallon. I know your prices normally have been higher than ours, but you're finding now we're having a glut of fuel because people aren't using it. People aren't driving as much, and it causes all kinds of problems. It's the time of year when you shift from winter grade fuel to summer grade, which has a different volatileness because of the temperature.
Uh-huh.
And they haven't sold the winter grade. And so it's like, okay, it's stuck in pipes. It's not going anywhere. What are we going to do with it? We have to store it somewhere. Because there are a couple of reasons. It's against the law to sell it. But the main reason is it's volatile. It's more volatile than summer gas. It gets warmer, and guess what? It evaporates. It gets into the system. It's just all kinds of interesting things. Plus, what you consider essential and not essential, there's little things that they didn't think about at first that might be parts or something that are necessary for a power plant that come from someplace that was considered non-essential. But they need that service or that part, and so that has to be changed too. It's just interesting how it affects things you don't even think about. In the case where some places you're getting not enough of something, there's a glutton of certain things because they're not being used.
Mhm.
So it's interesting how it affects the system all the way around, So
Well, it's interesting you say about the energy and the fuel areas because on the I mean, it's awful for those industries because they are losing out and there will be most likely job cuts. But if you look at it from another perspective, you are then going to start seeing the green energy companies start to lift up, and you could see a whole new industries actually starting to form from that. So there is there's kind of a plus side and a negative side to it all. It's just sort of seeing that balance and trying to focus on the positive side of it. I know there's the awful side of it where, as we say, people could be losing their jobs, but I think the green revolution just before all of this has kind of put a highlight that we do kind of want that anyway to sort of start reforming. So it'll be interesting to see.
So I guess what we're kind of both saying is that we're hoping that through this, uh, everybody reformulates things and we come out of this better than we went into it.
Yeah,
And
it's
I guess so.
we do need to start to look together though and sort of figure out where we need to actually be going because a lot of people are clinging on to areas of the past which may not be possible after this.
Well, I do think that immensely. I don't think I've ever said it to you, but I probably said it in some things. I think man predominantly wants to not change. Uh, Looking at what we thought from the early 60s and the 60s, life would be now in the 2000s. We thought we'd be flying around in our hovercrafts and living underground, and we'd live underground to protect the nature. Where our homes would become built into nature. But if you look at man's houses and stuff, we haven't changed too much for thousands of years, really. I mean,
I am a big fan of human habitation projects and trying to create the perfect spaces for humanity to live. But as you say, the problem with humans and life in general, because it is something that is across all species, is that we try to do things the easiest way. It's about getting energy the easiest way with using it's getting energy whilst using the least energy is what life's purpose is almost.
I have to admit, a lot of times with man, the most discoveries and inventions have been made to enable us to be more lazy.
It's very true. It's very true.
But yeah, so I don't. Anything else you might want to mention, Thomas? Anything you'd wish for people to take into mind or take forward through this, or go forward from this kind of interesting global?
One thing I said in our last chat, our last interview, was that you've got to check on your smiley friend. I have to double down on that at the moment because I've got a very good friend who's in Italy at the moment who is the smiley friend. And I know he's taken a hell of a lot of stress. I've pushed on him a couple of times and made sure he's okay. But you can tell that it's causing him a lot of problems. Obviously, he's constantly on Skype. He's constantly organising parties. But it's going to get to him. It's going to get to the smiley friend. It's going to get to the friend who you wouldn't think of. Funny enough, the people who seem to be doing okay through all of this are the people who are not usually the introverts of society, the ones who are usually in that sort of domain anyway. This is a call to them to start asking the smiley friend and the extroverts, are you okay?
It's funny you said that because one of my workmates is very extroverted, and she sent out an email saying how it was driving her crazy because her by herself or her and her husband were always going somewhere all the time, hiking, biking, doing things with groups, and when I know I started this with a mask on, but our work meetings every week, she always has a funny hat on and stuff, and I think it is bothering her the most.
Uh-huh.
But I've noticed even those that are normally introverted admit that they're introverted and hermits. They miss the fact that although they like their introversion, they were used to getting out every day to work.
Yeah.
And work kind of was their out. And even though they're introverts, they don't have that out they had. So even introverts want some sort of an out.
Well, that's a common theme. Yeah, work is the area that they thrive in almost, because they're able to get there and they're focused on their job and they just want to get back to their hobbit home. I have to admit I'm exactly the same. It's, I prefer to go out to work, get my job done, head home, and I can be a bit more enclosed. But yeah, it's those are the people that seem to be, as I say, coping the best with this. And
although you did just hit on something I thought of, I think the working from home interferes with your sanctity of your home.
Yes.
Because although I can be kind of extroverted, I'm kind of introverted too, and I kind of like my home being my fortress of solitude in a way. I don't necessarily like work infringing on that. It kind of is like, ooh, I don't, now my home is not my fortress of solitude.
Now, with that, we could actually try and push the more transhumanist ideas. It's something that I know our mutual friend Ben is pretty into, is the virtual reality.
Right.
You can always try and go into that sort of domain and start looking into the tech that can help you separate your life into a work life and a real life, basically. Obviously, it's not for everyone. It's not quite as affordable as it should be at the moment, but the prices are dropping, and things like this, the sales are probably up at the moment. Let's face it. So
I have one of those Oculuses. I haven't used it lately. As a matter of fact, I've been doing other things, so maybe I'll have to get back into using that more often. So that is interesting to use. I don't know if you've ever played with any of that. So that is fun and interesting.
I've tried it once. I felt quite sick, but it was.
Well, there's a roller coaster one I got quite. I felt it was awkward because you're going through a roller coaster, but your body's not feeling it, and it kind of does kind of make you say, what's really going on here?
I think you need that time to sort of climatize to it, don't you? Once you get into it.
It's sort of how I feel when I drive a trike.
I
don't know if you ever rode a motorcycle, but I've looked into trikes because of my leg operations. It's like you're sitting on it, your brain thinks you're on a motorcycle, but when you drive it and you take turns, it feels like a car, and it's weird to your mind. It's like,
yeah, you can't quite process. You should be doing this movement, but yeah. Going back to the whole VR thing, there is also another point with mental health is we should be trying to minimize the amount of screen time that you're getting, because try and keep your routine, but remember that this is a nightmare when it comes to things like getting into your mentality. If you log onto Facebook, all you're seeing is people who are arguing about the best way that we should be dealing with COVID. The best way is looking after yourself.
The new thing is it's all Bill Gates' fault now. That's the newest thing. All of a sudden that came out of nowhere over the past couple of days. So it's Bill Gates' fault. So
this isn't again. It's another part of mentality is that we are social animals and we pick up on other people's delusions, and delusions can spread like a virus themselves.
Exactly, it's true. The mob and get turned into a mob mentality.
Well, yes, exactly. I think it's moral panic is the term for it, or the Nobo effect. There are two different ways that ideas and thoughts can be spread throughout a society, and those are the kind of things that you're going to pick up from looking at your phone constantly, and you're going to see all these different conspiracy theories and ideas that people are putting out there. Think about your local community more, and don't think about the world's problems. We know what the world's problem is. We are dealing with it.
Well, get out and contact, like you said, contact your smiley friends. There's Skype, like we're doing right now. There's Zoom. You can even do it through Facebook. Even through Facebook, you can contact people. But even just call people. It's good to be reaching out to people that you can't be seeing right now.
Exactly.
Sort of like the old days when you didn't have this. So it's kind of interesting. That's like I even said about working out. I've gone back to a lot of things I used to do for working out back when I was in like junior high. And that's, I hate to say it, it's kind of refreshing. Doing something different. It's not the same. I'm not the same person I was in junior high, but
I have to say the most interesting things I'm seeing at the moment on social media. So if I look at my Instagram, for instance, the stories that I'm really interested in at the moment are the people who are doing things locally in their community. So the ones who are taking food to elderly people who can't go out, the ones who are 3D printing face masks and taking those to community centres so that they've got some form of PPI protection. Those are the ones I'm interested in at the moment. I'm not interested in the whole Boris Johnson's got ill again or something like this. Yeah.
Actually, one of my bosses at one of my essential jobs, he spent the time to sew masks for people and bring them in, and that was very nice of him. He did it himself, so that was very nice.
The technological advances that we've made in the last few years are really pushing us forward at the moment, and it's really showing what a society that cares and uses its technology correctly can actually do.
Well, I'll tell you what, Thomas, is there anything else you wanted to say today? I'll let you go. I myself hope that we do move forward with this and that we do use this time to evaluate what things were wrong or what were broken and fix them.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed we can get through that. And I completely agree.
Well, thank you. And in the meantime, try and keep it together. Visit our smiley friends through cyber methods. Keep our own spirits high. Music's another good way to keep your spirits high.
That's it.
One of my bosses from one of my jobs sends out a daily song for everybody that he thinks is appropriate. So
what
that's
a lovely
nice.
idea. Yeah, that's really nice.
And some of us have actually been sharing photos of our workstations at our house. So we're sharing that. So that's a way of all of us reaching also with music and with photos to share to help get through it. So thanks again for taking the time. And I tell you what we'll do is after this is all over, we'll get together and talk about this again.
Definitely. Once flights are coming up, you've got to come back down to England, yeah?
Yeah,
so you say.
That'd be great. I'd like to visit the lower part of the island this time. The first time I was there, I was in London.
Yep.
Last time I had hit Upper England and Scotland and the Highlands, and next time I got to hit the lower part.
Did you do Dover last time? Dover, Brighton, all of that?
Last time I flew into Manchester, and then drove up to Liverpool, and then from that I went up into Scotland. Hit the two big cities up there, Edinburgh. What's the other one?
You've got Edinburgh, Glasgow.
Glasgow, yeah. I went to Glasgow and drove through the Highlands and did some camping up in the Highlands.
Well, next time, make sure you head down Cornwall, Devon. Go see the Stonehenge, for instance.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to do too. I'd like to. I think didn't I send you a picture? There's a guy down there that calls himself King Arthur. But,
you did send me this, yes.
A biker druid group, and I like my motorcycles. I would love to go on a bike ride to Stonehenge with some biker druids and a guy that considers himself King Arthur. So that would be another way you can
This is another way you can keep your mentality up. Is make these plans, make things for the future that you want to do. Save up for them whilst you're in lockdown, if you are getting enough funding at that time. And with those plans, just keep thinking of those because that's what's going to get you through it.
No, I forget. You're in London proper?
I am in Essex, so I'm in a place called Brentwood, which is border of London. So I'm literally about a stone's throw away from London.
Well, next time I'm there, you'll be the happy face I visit. How's that?
Of course, mate. Of course.
And I'll be the happy face visiting. So, all right,
You have
all
a good
right.
one,
Well,
yeah?
you hang in there, and let's keep our all our fingers crossed that we all get out of this and it becomes a better world, and we'll do our part to work towards that. And we'll talk again
Stay
soon.
safe, everyone.
Thank you.